Spider-Man. It's a very good game, and if you have a PlayStation and you like Spider-Man, you should buy it. No, seriously though, I'm introing it this way because I feel like this is the most pointless video I will do the entire year. And what I mean by that is that, like, if you've seen any trailers, if you've watched any gameplay, if you know anything about what this game is, then you already know exactly what it is, and there are no surprises waiting for you. It's like, it's a Spider-Man game, and it's a good Spider-Man game, and that's it. And you can imagine what that is after that point. There's nothing else outside of that that's really going to be like, whoa, wasn't expecting. It's that. It's just really good. So straight away, if you are wondering whether or not this is a safe purchase, it is a fucking safe purchase by any metric. The thing I'll talk about at the very start though, because I know this somehow got out there, is this stupid Puddlegate nonsense. Fuck me. Puddlegate is one of the dumbest situations, the dumbest circumstances I've ever seen in my entire time covering video games. It's a puddle and some lighting and it changed. The developers never downgraded this game. Let's save the word downgrade for when it's actually a downgrade, like Ghost Recon Wildlands, like Watch Dogs, like a whole bunch of other examples. This is not a downgrade. Play this game. It's visually spectacular. Anyone that calls this a downgrade, this is like Alex Jones level shit, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter, okay? Puddlegate, nonsense. Let's get on with the rest of the review. So as I said, this is a good Spider-Man game. The thing I want to do in this review is point out a few things that I think work extremely well in this game and that are really stand out, and one or two things that aren't great. And the reason I just want to have this conversation, and the reason I'm doing this review, is because I want to give Insomniac credit for what they've created here. I guarantee you that a lot of people will not give Insomniac the credit they deserve, because so much of what you're going to experience in Spider-Man is so familiar. You would have played, you know, the old Spider-Man games, and you know how it feels to web swing through New York. You will have read comics throughout your youth, or even now. You will have watched dozens of movies and seen Spider-Man everything, television shows. Spider-Man becomes so familiar. We know exactly how it should be. And for a company like Insomniac to deliver so perfectly on that experience, I think there's a risk that a lot of people are just going to be like, well, of course, that's how it should be. Of course it should feel fantastic to web swing through New York, and of course the combat should feel that good. That's Spider-Man, that's how it should be. But for Insomniac to have landed it as well as they've landed it here, to create the connection between what is familiar and what is technically possible in the way they've done here, it really deserves some credit, and that's what I want to do in this review today. That's the focus of this. So let's start at the very top, the most important thing in a Spider-Man game, the web slinging. Whoa, slow down. Let's not get carried away. This isn't like 1990 whatever. Let's just run the normal soundtrack. This is the best version of web swinging that you have experienced to date. I've played all the Spider-Man games. The web swinging is what really defines a Spider-Man game. Back in the day, you'd play the game, really care what's going on, the combat, whatever. You'd really just want to float around New York City, swinging between Manhattan. That was it. Now, most of the games got this really right. Some of them got it wrong when you were like, you know, webbing into clouds and shit, and everyone was like, okay, that's a bit immersion breaking. I can tell you they got it really right here. This is the best, most fully realized version of web slinging you've experienced to date. There's a few layers to it. The first and needs to be called out is the level design. Now, you know, Manhattan is a multi-layered environment. You've got these big, tall skyscrapers, you've got much lower buildings, you've got poles, you've got trees, you've got everything, and all of this is specifically built to enable you to web swing. So if you're going past a skyscraper, cool, just hit that R2, you get a grip onto that, no problem. If you see you've got a bit of speed going ahead, and you can see like a lower building in front of you, you might want to pull yourself forward towards it with like a web zip kind of thing, okay? There's another more advanced move where you hold down the 2 triggers and you sort of pull yourself towards a specific perch point, and the minute you hit that, the second you hit that, you kind of like leap off it, and that's when you get a huge burst of speed. And this is one of the biggest sort of like skill cap moves. It's sort of one of the most important mastery moves in the entire game. It really is what sort of like helps you maintain speed and momentum through New York. Now, all of these things aren't possible unless you've got the level design that facilitates them. And all of that is just so on point all the time. And I really felt like more than any other Spider-Man game I've ever played, I was aware of my surroundings and surveying them and thinking about what is the right web move to use on a certain circumstance to navigate or to accelerate or even decelerate, you know, like you just have so much control over Spider-Man, and it just feels so fantastic to be leaping off something and dive bombing and doing somersaults and then putting that web out and it just... Stop, okay? No, I already said no more of that, okay? Alright, so let's talk combat. The easiest way for me to talk about why combat is so excellent in Spider-Man is just to show you this clip, which is me getting a 100 hit combo. That's nothing special. You'll probably get plenty of these during your playthrough, but it really showcases the amount of versatility that exists within this combat system. Now, it starts with your basic punches and kicks. That's fine, okay? You hit your square button, you're punching and kicking stuff, no problem. Now, triangle is the most important button in the entire combat rhythm, because what that will do is it will auto-target an enemy and pull you towards them. You never need to worry about managing your camera when playing Spider-Man. Anytime you cannot see an enemy, just hit the triangle button and it will automatically pull you to the nearest enemy, and you can then begin beating the shit out of them. Okay, so that is quite clever in the way that it does that. Now, you're seeing very often I'm getting my Spidey senses tingling, and that's when enemies are about to punch or shoot me. If I time my dodge at an exact moment, lots of different things can happen. I can give myself like a bullet time window of opportunity. I can actually initiate an instant finisher on enemies. Right there, you just saw one of my gadgets, which is a web bomb. I fired it off and I was able to just bring down a whole bunch of guys at once. There it is right there again. You can see me knocking bad guys all over each other. They have collision detection, so I can throw bad guys into each other. I'm about to initiate another finish here. You know, it's just, there's just endless choice. And I haven't even really started throwing things at enemies. I can press L1 and R1 when there is with stuff nearby, and I can throw it at them. I can web up enemies and then throw them at each other. It's just relentless, you know, and it just feels the entire time like I have complete control over what I'm doing, and at any point in time I have about 15 different options available to me. Now, this depth is made possible by the basic combat systems, but also by a skill tree that unlocks. It has different abilities and moves in there. As you progress further and further down it, more and more stuff becomes available, and I would say there are about 15 to 20 new combat moves, maneuvers, options, whatever, that become available by unlocking different shit. So it's a very meaningful combat system. It is not, it can be very button mashy if you want it to be, and if you just want to keep hitting the square button, you will get through this game. There's no question about that. But if you want to enjoy yourself, if you want to put on a show and really feel like, you know, the world is your oyster with regards to like what you can do, then opportunities, the flexibility is staggering. Like, it really is just a huge accomplishment, and Insomniac really need to be called out for this. I don't want to compare it to something like Arkham. I think it's unfair to do that, because I know a lot of people are like, is it better than that? But it's very similar to that. It's equally accomplished. It has other strengths and weaknesses. Let's just say that it's going to be fantastic and you're going to really enjoy it. Trust me, the combat is just like... Third thing that really needs to be called out is the visual spectacle of this game. Like, you've seen it just there in combat alone. Combat itself is very flashy. But let me give you another example. Here, I'm just swinging through the streets and I see a car down on the ground. It's full of bad guys. I can just drop down onto that car and just initiate this huge car chase sequence where I'm like pulling bad guys out and I'm flying them off to the side. I'm reaching in, knocking people over, the car has to come to a stop and I've got to kind of like web it to you know, put its brakes on. That's just one example, okay? Don't even get me started on the boss fights. God of War is a very strong reference point for the kind of boss fights that you can experience in this game. The set pieces, the cinematic quality to those encounters is staggeringly good. Like, it's staggeringly good. It's better than the shit you will see in Marvel. It's the only fight scene I think that comes close is like Civil War, like the fight scene where everyone's going fucking nuts and going at each other. That's the only fight scene in the Marvel studio, Marvel Cinematic Universe that comes close to the stuff you're going to see in this game. And I won't spoil any of it, but let's just say that no one is going to walk away from this game disappointed at the quality of the boss fights. They are phenomenal. And on top of that as well, there's just this beauty to Manhattan. Like, you know, so many times the sun is setting, I'm web slinging, I'm flying through the streets, you know, and I'm just like looking around thinking, wow, this is such a pretty game. It's gorgeous. And just, oh man, that's what makes me so mad about this whole like Puddlegate thing. Like, just look at this game and tell me that this isn't a visual powerhouse, that this isn't one of the best looking games ever released on a console. It unquestionably is. It's fantastic. And the recreation of New York is excellent as well. I was recently in New York and had visited a lot of the places that I see in this game. They've done a really good job of making it very authentic. The open world is actually something that warrants a lot of discussion, right? The basic structure of this game is that there is a campaign that you're following through, and you can imagine it has your normal story beats with Peter Parker and MJ and different, you know, enemies and the like. And then there's sort of your open world areas where you bring up your map and you've got just a ton of markers on your map. Some of the objectives involve, you know, collecting a backpack, finding it and whatever. You've got it. Done. Collect 50 of those. Some of them involve taking photos of landmarks, which is really fun because you can actually kind of do that on your way to a mission. Like, you're swimming past it, take your camera out, slow down time as you're swinging past it, take the shot, keep moving on, you feel like a total badass, right? So there's those. There's missions where you need to clear out bases. There are time trial style missions where you need to swing between places really quickly. There are no pizza time delivery things from what I can tell, which I think is an absolute tragedy, but anyway, that's fine. This is very much an open world collectathon if you want it to be, but at the same time, you don't have to do a single one of those missions if you don't want to, and I really love that. I hate games like Assassin's Creed, where it's like, hey, here's the campaign, but here's heaps of boring side shit that you have to do no matter what to level yourself up. It's not like that in Spider-Man. There is no level gating, there is no requirement to do any of the open world stuff if you don't want to. You just go forth and do the campaign, and that's it. But the open world stuff is fun. You're going to want to do it anyway, trust me, so you're not going to be disappointed on that front. So those are the things that I think Insomniac deserve huge amounts of credit for. Web swinging is spectacular, combat is first class, the visual spectacle of the game, both technically and in terms of its cinematic presence, is just fantastic. I think there are, though, a few things that I didn't love about this game. I think the first is the story. You're gonna, you have Peter and MJ, and they've broken up, and they've got this sort of thing where they're trying to maybe get things going again, sort of. It's kind of well written, sometimes it doesn't really land, but there's also some stuff going on with the villains, and the way that story progresses, in particular, a key sort of plot twist that occurs really falls flat for me, like super flat in fact, and it kind of really disrupted some of my immersion with how this was all going down. It's not a deal breaker, but certainly I wasn't playing Spider-Man to find out what was happening next in the story. I was just kind of like, okay, cool, there's some bad guys, let's go and kill them. I knew what was going to happen, generally speaking. It didn't really grip me. So just be prepared for that. It's not the best Spider-Man story you've ever encountered. I think there is a big challenge, though, when it comes to playing as Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and also one other character who I won't spoil now, okay? Peter Parker is a scientist. When you play as Peter, you have to do these missions where you're sort of like decoding or, fixing circuit boards. It's fun the first 3 or 4 times. It gets really annoying and kind of boring after that. Mary Jane's missions are almost exclusively about sneaking around. You just basically hide behind boxes, go from point A to point B. It's basically like Metal Gear Mary Jane. it's not great, to be honest. I would gladly have skipped those missions. There is one spectacular mission though with Mary Jane and Peter, or Spider-Man I should say, where they're in Grand Central Terminus and she's sneaking around while Spider-Man is on the roof. And she's like telling, you know, Peter when he can take out the bad guys. And so she gives an order and then they snatch him. Oh God, it's such a great scene. And it's an example of how it could have gone had they approached the whole sort of like play as Mary Jane differently. I don't know. But as I said, just mission after mission of sneaking, it does definitely wear thin after a while. Another thing that I don't love is the whole DLC thing. There's DLC coming out in October, November, December. It is paid DLC that brings sort of side quests with new villains or new whoever involved, new personalities. I don't like the idea of DLC that arrives a month after release because I just don't think that's how games should be made. I like the idea that you ship a product, it's finished. If you want to work on something meaty, then do that later on after you've shipped your game and let a good 6 months lapse where you're working on that new content. I would have preferred that had been included for free personally. God of War is a great example of this. There was no extra paid DLC or whatever else. It was just kind of like, we're gonna ship the game, done. Horizon Zero Dawn, same thing. None of that nonsense. I would have loved if Insomniac had not done this and just released everything on day one, but that's that, and I wanted to call that out just for transparency's sake. But the thing is though, everything that I just said, it's not a deal breaker, man. You know, like, at the end of the day, if you want to buy a Spider-Man game and you want it to be a good Spider-Man game, there is no way you're going to walk away from this game and think, that was a shit Spider-Man game, I'm so disappointed, Insomniac really... No, you're not going to think that. You're going to walk away from this game very satisfied. It's going to tick like 95% of your boxes. You're going to want to log back in after you've finished and just swing around the city and clear out the map because it's fun to do that. It's chill. It's just great. Like, it's a really big accomplishment on Insomniac's part. And as I said, I really hope they get the credit they deserve. It would be so easy for everyone just to think, yep, cool, that's how it should have been. You didn't fuck it up, well done. But not only do these guys not fuck it up, but they really nailed it. And Spider-Man just becomes a new jewel in Sony's exclusive crown, along with all the other incredible shit that they've got on their platform. It's a true testament to their overall strategy of investing in, you know, good quality IP with fantastic developers, giving them money they need to like create good shit. This is another one of those games, you know, if you don't have a PS4, buy a PS4 for God of War, and then also buy Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Because like, you're really going to enjoy it. Anyway, that's the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, do the whole like thing. And there's also Patreon if you really want to support me. My next 2 weeks is just going to be spent playing Destiny, so get ready for my Forsaken review 2 weeks from now. And also, I'm giving away a copy of Spider-Man. So check the description below and also the pinned comment, and I'm going to have a link, follow that, and I will give away a copy of Spider-Man. I'm going to give that away a week from now after this video goes live, so get in early. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Congratulations, Insomniac. You guys did well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.